Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. Aaron, I'd like to start with you. Granted, things have been the same for a long time, but why does the Supreme Court need reforms, in your opinion?
The court has implicated itself in the sabotaging of democracy, blocking millions of black and brown voters from the polls, and is very unlikely to allow this administration and Congress to deal with planetary emergencies like climate change. In addition to that, the court was arguably stolen in 2016, and democracies just don't work when courts are stolen. So the only way to deliver a court that will allow the administration and Congress to solve the problems we face is to expand it.
Anthony, are there any reforms you would support or you think would necessary, and where are you on expanding it?
Well, in expanding the Supreme Court, I think there are a number of problems, two of them that immediately come to mind. One, it's politically incredibly short-sighted. If Democrats were to expand the number of seats on the Supreme Court, when Republicans return to power, they would easily respond in kind, doing nothing for the institution. Secondly, a lot of these political problems we're talking about aren't best solved by the courts. These are the sort of things we want our lawmakers at the state or federal level to deal with. And if they're not dealing with them, then we need to take the political steps to handle that through elections, not through law and not through judges.
Aaron, President Biden has said he's not a fan of court packing. In fact, Ruth Bader Ginsburg also didn't like it. The fear here, as Anthony's pointed out, is that the next Republican president will do the same thing.
The Republicans have already stolen the court, and if your wallet is stolen, you wouldn't forego efforts to get it back just because it might be stolen again. A parallel point is that the Republicans will try to pack the court if and when they need to do so, regardless of what Democrats do. And we know that because they've been packing state Supreme Courts for years. So even if the Democrats do nothing and regain the majority on the court in 20 or 30 years through normal rotation, the Republicans will surely pack the courts to get control of it back.
Anthony, policies, judges, those are the consequences of elections. Like it or not, that's at least how it's supposed to work. Do you think we're even talking about this if the Merrick Garland situation and nomination hadn't thrown a wrench into it?
I mean, likely not. And I think that continues to be one of the most frustrating aspects for many liberals and progressives across the country was the failed nomination of Merrick Garland and really igniting more of the judicial confirmation wars, and most recently with the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett to replace the late Justice Ginsburg. So a lot of this is based on frustrations with the direction of the court. But when we're talking about packing, what we're actually doing would be legislatively expanding the number of seats. Republicans have not done that, and Republicans, even when pressured to do so at the federal level, have still refused to.
Aaron, the Biden administration is moving forward with a commission, and you have said that's a place where ideas go to die. I'm assuming you would admit that any changes will be a heavy lift.
Just a minute on Republican retaliation. The reason the Republicans did not pack the Supreme Court over the last few years is that they didn't need to pack it in order to steal it. When Mitch McConnell refused to allow Barack Obama to fill an open vacancy, that was the first time that had happened in modern American history. The Supreme Court's size has changed 6 times throughout American history, and so there's nothing un-American or even radical about changing its size now. But what we do know is that Republicans have pushed in a radical direction to pack state Supreme Courts and would not hesitate to pack the United States Supreme Court. As for the Biden Commission, look, there's effectively no time left on the clock to address climate change, to say nothing of 30,000 gun deaths a year, lack of access to reproductive health care, a broken immigration system, and on the problems go. And the Democrats probably have at most 2 years to solve these problems. And so to spend 6 months or a year studying a problem whose answer we already know doesn't make sense with no time left on the clock.
Anthony, I'll let you address that if you want, but in the meantime, for people who were convinced that this court would favor former President Trump, the first decisions anyway haven't turned out that way.
Well, and I would also note that if you go back, really ever since Chief Justice Roberts became chief of the federal courts, that there's been tremendous frustration with some of the decisions by conservatives of the Supreme Court. If you notice, Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, going back to the tax return cases, for instance, ruled against the president. I think it's unfair and really disingenuous to say that the court was necessarily stolen, and at the same time say that it's perfectly constitutional to expand the number of seats on the Supreme Court. You can. The Constitution says nothing about the number of seats that are on the Supreme Court. You can do that through legislation. It's either a radical, terrible move or it's perfectly acceptable. You have to choose one or the other. And when it comes to a commission, I think it's important. When you have a commission, you're bringing a number of ideas to the table. And that's important. If you have buy-in, that's when you can have long-standing change. If you are short-sighted and dramatically go ping-ponging back and forth one way to the other on ideas and something as drastic as changing the number of justices on the Supreme Court, which we haven't done since the Civil War era, you need a lot of bipartisan buy-in.
Well, we'll see what the commission decides. Let's end, gentlemen, if we can, with a yes or no question. I have a few of them for you. Will the court in the end be expanded? Yes or no, Aaron?
Yes.
Anthony?
No.
Will there be any reforms to the court?
Aside from court expansion?
Yes.
Yes, possibly term limits and a code of conduct for the Supreme Court.
Anthony?
Yes, and sure. I think code of conduct is probably one of the more likely ones.
All right, the last question, yes or no. There's been talk of this. We saw what happened with Justice Ginsburg. Is there a chance that Justice Breyer at age 82 will be pressured to resign to make sure Biden would pick his replacement? Anthony, let's start with you on that. Yes or no?
Pressured, yes. Will he resign based on those pressures? No.
Aaron?
I can't make a prediction about a personal professional decision, so I don't know.
All right, fair enough. Gentlemen, Aaron Belkin, take back the court. Anthony Marcum, R Street Institute. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.